In this tutorial, we're going to learn how to use the slope formula to find the slope of a line without a graph. If you are given 2 points that are located on the line, you can find the slope or rate of change of that data or that graph without actually having a picture. So let's look at our notes and fill in the formula for slope. Remember, slope is the number in the M or the A position. So here are the 2 fancy formulas that you can use to help you find the slope of a graph without the actual picture. So this here is not an exponent. This is actually a subscript or a low writing. y2 is how it's pronounced because it's not a power. That would be y squared. This is not a mathematical operator. This is just a listing number. y2 minus y1 is how you calculate the numerator. y2 is the y value from the second point. y1 is the y value from the first point. The denominator of your ratio will be the second x value, x2, subtract the first x value, x1. So this is the actual mathematical formula. This other formula that I have here is the English version of this mathematical formula. This is the Greek symbol for delta. The triangle is the Greek symbol for delta. Delta y over delta x is how this is pronounced. And delta means change. How are the numbers changing? What is the pattern of the y numbers? What is the pattern of the x numbers? That is another way that you could calculate the rate of change, or the slope. So remember, these little numbers here are description numbers, right? They're not math operators. So let's say I have the point 5,3, I have the point -4,2, I have a third point, -7, -3. This is my first point, so it's x1, y1. This blue one is my second point, so I would call that x2, y2. And this green one is my third point, etc., etc., etc. Now you can only use 2 points at a time, so I'm going to take this one away because it's not relevant right now. But if I have 2 points, x1 and y1, and then x2 and y2, I find it simplest if I were to separate my points together here and line them up. So I have my x on top of my other x, and my y coordinate on top of my other y coordinate. Right? So I'm lining them up. My first x over my second x, my first y over my second y. And then once I have them lined up, I quickly circle my y values because I always have to calculate their difference first. It's y minus y over x minus x. Now this minus sign is important. It's part of the formula. Now your numbers might have minuses in them, but the minus from the formula is super important. So remember, you have to calculate the difference of the y's first. So these go first. And since this is my first value, this would be y1, and this is my second value, that would be y2. So in the formula, the y2 number should be first. The y1 number should be second. Now remember, this minus is from the formula. His minus has to be added as well. And now I can fill in my x's. This is my second x, this is my first x. So my second x must be first, and my first x must be last. And now I can just do the arithmetic. 2 minus -3 is 2 plus 3, which is 5, and -4 minus 5 is -9. And that's how you calculate the slope when you're given 2 points. So let's take a look at some of the examples on your worksheet. Again, I find it easiest if you write the numbers, one on top and one underneath, and immediately circle your y values. My second y is 12. The formula has a minus sign in the middle, right? My first value is 8, and now I move on to my x's. the second x, take away the first x, and need another negative sign there, right? So this one's from the formula, this one's from the value. So 12 minus 8 is 4, and 3 minus a negative 13 is 3 plus 13, which is 16. And if I reduce this, I'm actually going to get 1/4. So pause the video now, try using this formula on your own, and see if you can get the next 5 questions right. Okay, now that you've had a chance to pause the video, let's take a look at your results. Pause this video to check the answers on your paper. When you're finished, begin again on the next side. So let's take a look at some special cases here. I'm going to write my points one on top of the other, like I told you. And I'm going to move this point down, so 1 comma negative 4. I'm going to fill in my formula here, right? So I got my second y, negative 4, minus my first y, which is also negative 4, my second x minus my first x. I've got a lot of negative signs here. So right, anytime you have two negatives in a row, you're going to add the opposite there. You're going to add the opposite. So let's see. I have negative 4 plus 4, and that actually gives me a 0. And then I have 1 plus 5, which is 6. But if I have nothing and I want to split it into 6 groups, then I've got nothing, 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 nothing. So the answer is 0. So if you remember from our previous video, a line with a slope of 0 would have a graph that was horizontal. Alright, let's take a look at number 12. So I'm going to write the second point underneath, 7, negative 2, right? 7, negative 2. And then I am going to circle my y's. I'm going to write those first so I don't forget. And I also like to write my minuses from the formula first so I don't forget. So negative 2, and then up to 3, and then 7, and then up to 7. So it looks like I'm going to get negative 5, and 7 take away 7 is 0. Now if I have 5 items, or negative 5 items, there's no sort of math I can do that's going to split that into nothing for each group. So dividing by 0 is not possible. If you did it on your calculator, it would say error. So you need to write the word undefined. And if you remember from the last video, when Slope Dude was skiing and he went over that hill, undefined, right? Its graph was a vertical line. So remember, anytime you have a 0 underneath, that means you have to write the word undefined. So fill that in your notes here, undefined. Okay, it's important. You can't just leave it like this. You can't just leave it like that. You must interpret it. You must go one step further and tell me if it's actually possible or if it's impossible. So go ahead and pause the video and try these next 4 special cases on your own. See what you get. Okay, don't forget, you cannot stop here. You must keep going, right? From here, you must keep going. So if you have this answer, you have to interpret it that you can't divide by 0, undefined. A 0 in the numerator is okay, a 0 in the denominator is not okay. And it's up to you to interpret that correctly. Alright, let's take a look at some points that are not given in parentheses separated by a comma. So these are a whole bunch of points. Negative 6, comma 11. Negative 2, comma 1. Neg 2, comma negative 9. So from here, we can still use that formula from before, or we can use that other formula I was talking about at the beginning, which is the change of the y's over the change in the x's, or which is the patterns of the number. Now, the pattern is always going to be the same ratio, but you're only allowed to pick 2 points. So let's say I want to go from the first point to the second point. So the pattern is that if I start at 11 and I'm going down to 1, that I went down 10. That's my pattern, down 10. But over here, if I start at -6, -5, -4, -3, -2, but I'm going to -2, you see how I'm going up? I'm actually getting closer to 0. So this is actually increasing by 4. So the slope here from these 2 points, or the pattern here, is -10 is the change in my y, and 4 is the change in my x. We could reduce this to -5 halves. Right? So I'm using my pattern here instead of actually using my formula of x2, y2, right? So -5 halves. Now let's say I did want to use that formula. Let's just go back and revisit that formula here. So my y's are 1 minus 11, and my x's are -2 minus -6, and 2 minuses here are going to turn into addition. So I get -10 over 4, and -10 over 4 reduces to -5 halves. Now let me try it one more time here. So again, I'm looking for the formula here as a shortcut if I don't want to do the y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. If I don't want to do that, I can just look at the pattern, right? Look at the pattern of the numbers. So let's see, I'm going to choose this one and this one. So it looks like 1 to -14. So I'm going to pass 0, go all the way down to -14. So I'm actually decreasing by 15. That's my delta y, right? That is the pattern of my y numbers. And I have to match up with the same x's. I can't go from here to here. I have to match up. So -2 going up to 4, that means I got to pass 0, so that's 2 spaces. And then go all the way up to 4, that's 4 spaces plus my original 2, that makes 6 spaces. -15 over 6 can be reduced by dividing both the numerator and the denominator by 3, and I get -5 halves, just like I did the other 2 times. So you can certainly use the formula here for the table by choosing any 2 points you like, or you can use this delta y, delta x pattern and choose any 2 points you like to find that pattern quickly. Alright, pause the video here, give these a try, then unpause to check your solutions. Okay, let's see how you did. Pause the video, check over your work, and when you're done, you can get started on your next classwork assignment.